The main view page is what we use the vast majority of the time to do our monitoring. It's the page that it stays up on the video screen continuously. That way we can look at cant by cant as they enter the cut, what the performance of the saw is. Of course, you have a left and right saw for our system. We run a twin band system, and you can monitor. What we look at is the current cut performance, shift performance. We also look at our feed speed. You can watch that change over time. You notice the current cant goes up or down, and our overall average for the shift. That's always a good indicator of saw performance, and as well as machine performance. Machine performance being the primary driver of the saw performance. Given a normal operating condition, our saws are pretty consistent, so it enables us to watch our machine, watch what it's doing, and what it's also done to the saws. Second screen that we'll look at is a summary. It'll tell us exactly what the performance is over the entire shift, log by log, how many were within the green parameters, how many were at a warning stage, and then how many actually produced an error. And that's always a good way to summarize and look at your performance real time. Of course, we can change the parameters. We don't change them very much. Mainly, the main thing that we will work with are max decel and max decel. The minimums pretty much stay the same. We will just increase this max up or down. Currently, it's at 5%. Depending upon the situation, we may increase it. Usually it stays the same. We've pretty much found that given our entry speeds, we don't want to excel more than 5%. We have tried 10% and been successful there, but there's some issues with our machine center that dictate whether or not we can run it that high. I also look at reports. We set up the shift times for the reports on this page, and so that it actually gives us a report when we want it, which is pretty standard for most of these systems throughout the mill. We also use the maintenance page quite often to zero the saws, which usually we do at shift or at the saw startup at a saw change, and we don't have to offset it or zero it very much. Occasionally, and it only gets off slightly. It's not a major deal, but as we try to just keep things as tight as possible, we do monitor the zeroing of the sensors. And this right here, you can do it right here, and we can also do it from our remote computer or our notepad computer. And pretty soon we're going to have that where the operator can do it in the operator cab, so that'll be pretty convenient and real effective, real-time reactivity to that. History is also a huge part, and you can see here we had a saw that we lost control of the log. We spiked up toward the center line, or for our case is a guide bar, which is indicated by this gray line. This doesn't mean that it actually hit the guide bar. Graphically, it just represents a deviation of 50 thousandths into the guide bar. It'll take usually several inches to actually hit the guide bar, but it does at least tell you which direction you ran in or out. And the history is also very good. If you do lose control of logs, you can go back and you can pause the history, which stops it and allows you to go backwards in time an hour. And you can go back and look at where you had issues back. Everything seems to be pretty good for us at the present. And then of course you hit resume to start tracking that data and looking at it over time. Very, very few times have we actually missed a wreck, because an hour is it's a pretty good amount of time to be able to follow up on these issues. And of course you can see you're ramping up or down depending on the performance of the saw and what it's doing. Here we ramp down, there we ramped up, which is nice to see. And you can also see that in the main view as well. The only difference between this screen and the main view is you can't stop and look back on the main view. But the main view gives you some additional things. You can look at your current and your set and your entry speeds. You cannot see that in as far as a digital readout, so to speak. You have to actually do the math, look at the line. But over here, it's really nicely presented. You can look at the current speed from second or millisecond to millisecond. What we actually are the set speed that we set for that log, and what we also entered to cut at. And if your current speed is more than either one of these, then you're actually the Lacey-Harmer system has actually identified that opportunity and is capturing it for you in terms of throughput, and that's always a good thing to see. One other feature of the main view that we utilize is you can isolate by saw to get you some real exact measures. You just point at the saw you want. For here is, or you can, you use the button down here. Click on left saw. And that gives you a lot more detailed graph, telling you whether you got your yellow line, which is a warning, your red line, which is your error, and of course the green lines are your acceptable deviation or deflection. Same thing with the right saw. Just click on right saw, take you right over. And you can see here we're having some issues with the left saw as opposed to the right. The right's running really tight. The left, we go back, it's not quite performing up that well, although it's still within parameters, which is good. And then you go back to all saws and it'll give you the graph of both, and that's what we leave it on. But we do look at saw by saw, which is always a helpful tool. One thing that you can do as well from this screen is zero the bandsaws. You just have to make sure it's not in the cut. If it's out of the cut, like now, I can zero it, and everything gets re-zeroed. And that's where we maintain the zeroing of the sensors, which gives you the most accurate reading, which is what you want. If you'll notice here, it'll light up left or right in our particular application. It's a left and a right twin bandsaw, and it'll tell you which side is in the cut, or neither side in the cut. So very graphically friendly for the user.